I was in the 4th grade, in the era of balloon bows. If you don't know what a balloon bow is, imagine taking 30 unfilled balloons, attaching them to a barrette with wire and wearing that as a stylish hair accessory. Jennifer, Rachel, and 4 other friends from our class had a sleepover, and we made our matching balloon bows to wear the next week. On Monday, we came to school with our balloon bows and were looking exceptionally cool. And then Rachel pulled out a BFF necklace from her pocket that she had bought for me, the kind where the heart is split in 2 pieces and you each wear one. The problem was, I didn't want to be best friends forever with Rachel. I wanted to be BFFs with Jennifer. If Jennifer saw me wearing a BFF necklace with Rachel, then she'd never be my BFF. I didn't know what to do, so I took the necklace and shoved it in my pocket instead of putting it on. And on the way out to the school buses that afternoon, at the direction of Jennifer, I threw it down the storm drain. As soon as it slipped out of my fingers, I knew I had made a horrible choice. I felt terrible shame and irreversible regret. When Rachel asked me why I wasn't wearing our necklace the next day, I said I'd forgotten it. When she asked the next day, I told her I'd forgotten it again. And on the 3rd day when she asked, I told her I'd lost it. I could see the hurt in her eyes, a sadness at my lack of regard for the gift that she'd given to express her friendship. I was embarrassed. The thing was, Jennifer didn't want to be my best friend either. She was actually pretty mean and didn't really care about anyone but herself. Rachel had always been kind and thoughtful. That night, I went home and buried my head in my pillow and cried. I didn't know how to fix it. I'd gotten myself wrapped up in a series of lies and I'd hurt someone who had shown nothing but kindness toward me. I had really messed up. So what's your story? Have you ever really messed up? Where did you come from and where are you headed? What peaks and valleys have shaped how you see the world today? You have a story, and that story matters. It's the unique story of you. I have my own story of me. And we're each made in the image and likeness of the divine with gifts and insights and abilities. Our personal experiences shape how we know and understand God. Your story with its details and plotline is important, and it matters. Over the next 3 weeks, we'll be looking together at the story of one character from Scripture, Peter. Though our experiences are unique and individual, we can't help but see patterns and exchanges, strivings and mistakes, grace and hope that mirror our own life's journey. With Peter's journey as our guide, we're going to dig more deeply into the ideas of my story, our story, and the story. This understanding is an important framework of Barrett's vision for our church. The irony is, while it's his vision, I get to kick off the series and lay the groundwork as he is away at our adult discipleship retreat this weekend. So I'll give you my take on the situation, and he can say whatever he wants to next week. There are 3 levels at which we can experience and understand God. My story is our personal, private life searching for significance and revealing the power of God at work in our individual stories, the my story. Our collective story takes into consideration the whole of our experiences as families and communities and other groups, and recognizes there is something larger than ourselves that holds us together and allows us to see God at work more broadly. That's our story. Finally, we connect with the overarching story throughout time and place, understanding that truth and harmony and hope are God's universal reality. And that's the divine story, the story. At the beginning, we can mostly only consider our stories. Children are egocentric and all experiences are seen through their own lenses. Our early questions sound like, what can I do? What's expected of me? How can that impact me? And what can I gain? But as we grow and mature, my story can become a part of something bigger. We recognize the people around us are a part of our story, and our questions shift from ones of self-centeredness to community orientation. How can I help others? Who am I choosing to surround myself with and to love and to care for and be influenced by? How can my life cooperate with the efforts of others to do good, to work together, and to do more than I could ever do alone. How do our stories collectively better help us to comprehend the nature of God? But the greatest of all the stories is the story that runs through time and place, where there is always an abundance, more than enough love and grace and provision, always enough hope and joy, and we don't have to earn it, gain it, or deserve it. We don't have to be the same or be right. In God's story, we can celebrate the differences, join with others on their journey, and find ourselves in awe of the bigger, more expansive, more grace-filled love of God. These three levels are each unique but intertwined. Today, we'll narrow our focus to our personal experiences and zoom in to Peter's story as we see how Peter experienced God's power. Peter was a fisherman, that seaman who owned a boat with his brother, who Jesus said, "Come, follow me, no longer fish for fish, but fish for people." And Peter, seemingly without hesitation, dropped his nets, tied up his boat, and followed Jesus. We don't know exactly how well Peter may have known Jesus before this moment, but there must have been enough hearsay and enough wonder to make Peter willing to jump ship. As he dutifully walked toward discipleship, we can begin to see Peter's loyalty. Peter was witness as Jesus taught the people, and he saw great miracles. That front row seat to the awe and mystery must have strengthened his admiration and trust. When Jesus asked the disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" it was Peter who first proclaimed, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." And then Jesus turned around and told Peter, "You are the rock upon which I will build my church." With that new promotion and title, Peter must have felt emboldened to keep striving to follow. But as Jesus began to predict his death to the disciples, Peter scoffed and said, "Never, Lord, I will never let that happen." And Jesus scolded Peter, demanding, "Get behind me, Satan. Don't interfere with the ways of God." Oof. Built up, humbled, confidence gained, confidence lost. But Peter persists. When Jesus went for a walk on the water, it was Peter who had the courage and audacity to get out of the boat and attempt to walk on the water too. And when it didn't go as well as he'd hoped it would, poor Peter has been criticized for his sinking doubt and fear for generations. Peter accompanied Jesus on a hike up a mountain where he witnessed the transfiguration. Instead of running in fear from the glowing white Jesus and appearance of two talking dead men, Moses and Elijah, Peter offered to do all he could think of to be helpful in that moment, asking, "Can I pitch a tent for you all here?" While his intentions were good, I can imagine Jesus said, "No, Peter, thanks for thinking of us, but we don't need tents. There's more to come. This isn't the stopping point." Peter tried to demonstrate his top student teacher's pet kind of understanding of Jesus' forgiveness, asking, Teacher, would it be right to forgive my neighbor 7 times over?" Jesus rebutted, "Not 7, but 70 times 7. That's a good start, Peter, but keep thinking bigger. Keep stretching your mind. There's even more to my kingdom to comprehend." Peter went with Jesus to the garden to pray, but when his mentor asked for support, he fell asleep. Jesus woke him and asked him to pray again, but Peter fell asleep again. Peter had his physical and emotional limits, but with a bit of rest, he was back to the task and ready to defend. When the mob came to arrest Jesus, it was Peter who pulled out the sword and cut off the ear of the high priest's slave. But Jesus told Peter to put away his weapon, and he healed Malchus' ear. I wonder if Jesus thought, even after all you've seen and heard, after all we've done together, everything you've ever seen me do, are you really still going to pull out your sword and fight? My message is of love, not hostility, of healing, not pain, of forgiveness, not revenge. My time has come. Peter, he is quite the relatable character. I see pieces of my own story all throughout his. We can see reflections of Peter's humanity within our own stories. We have those moments of striving, of willingness to follow, to even jump out of the boat and try to walk on the water. Moments of defending our beloved teacher and friend. Moments of assuming we know what's needed and best. Moments when we think we've been gracious enough. Moments when we think what we believe is right. And yet, like Peter, there is still more understanding to gain, more lines to erase, more love to share, and more grace to receive. In the text for today, Peter really blew it. His biggest failure to date. They were at the Last Supper. Let's read from Matthew 26, verses 31 through 35. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered." Jesus was quoting from the prophet Zechariah, who had foretold of his death. Verse 32, "But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." And Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." "Truly, I tell you," Jesus answered, "this night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all of the other disciples said the same. Peter desperately wanted to prove his loyalty and his faithfulness. He wanted to live up to his name status as the rock. When Jesus was arrested and taken away, Peter followed from a distance to watch and see what would happen. And the very thing he had denied could ever be true played out, just as Jesus said it would. Continuing in Matthew 26 with verse 69. Now, Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. "You were with Jesus of Galilee," she said, but he denied it before them all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he went out the gateway, where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." And he denied it again with an oath. "I don't know the man." After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away." And he began to call down curses, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Immediately, a rooster crowed, and then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken. "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. Jesus foretold that all of the disciples would fall away, and Peter said he would never. When Jesus predicted Peter would deny him, Peter said he would never. But that night, Peter slunk back in the crowd, and as 3 people asked if he belonged with Jesus, 3 times he denied knowing him at all. Oh, how Peter must have felt. He denied even knowing Jesus, let alone giving up everything else to follow him, to learn his teachings, to witness his miracles and build his church. The weight of that shame and regret and self-disappointment must have borne heavily on his shoulders, and he wept. I wonder what that next day and the next and the next felt like for Peter, steeped in shame, but also perhaps feeling righteous for his denial and his anger. After all, his teacher was gone, dead, until he wasn't. John's account of Jesus' resurrection puts Peter right there, right away, running in to see those linen strips and the headcloth lying in the empty tomb. I imagine Peter wasn't exactly sure what had happened, but perhaps he had hope that the end he assumed was permanent really wasn't the end of the story. Regardless of Peter's many mess-ups and shortcomings, we're just getting to the best part. A few days later, Peter was out fishing and he hadn't caught a thing all night when Jesus told him to put his nets out on the other side of the boat. The nets became so full, they started to break and could barely be hauled into shore. But Jesus, sitting by a charcoal fire with a meal prepared, asked Peter, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you really love me?" 3 chances to recommit, to repronounce his loyalty and redeclare his faith. 3 chances to make right the wrongs that had been done. Jesus forgives. Jesus restores. And Jesus offers Peter an abundance of grace and life. The truth is, our own stories are laden with "I really blew it" moments. Things we regret we said or did, or things we didn't do but wish we had. Times when we said, "I'll never, God," but then we did. But those moments don't have to knock us down in shame or sorrow, for we have a God who wants to build us back up with even greater faith and wisdom and strength. In Peter's life, we see persistence. When moments didn't go as he'd hoped, he kept on going. I am so comforted to know that if at first you don't succeed, Jesus will allow us to try again. In our striving, we grow, and in our depths of understanding, we reach places of less certainty and more trust. The moments of trial and error help push us out beyond the boundaries that we've drawn and encourage us to put our nets in new, wider, and deeper waters. When we do, we can be overwhelmed with the abundance of God's mercy and grace. A couple more days passed, and my friends and I were still wearing our matching balloon bows when Rachel turned and handed me a small box with a tiny bow on top. I really didn't know what to expect inside. I was still feeling so much regret, worry that I'd hurt a friend by having so little regard for the necklace. I didn't know if she knew the truth, that I'd lied about losing the gift and really thrown it away. But as I lifted the lid to the little box, inside were 2 handmade friendship bracelets. Rachel was offering me her friendship and grace, undeserved, with a new gift. I hugged her with delight as we tied the bracelets around one another's wrists, a symbol of our friendship. For me, also a reminder of persistence, forgiveness, and second chances for the making of something new. During that one roller coaster of a week, my view of Rachel changed completely, and I began to recognize her for the loyal and kind friend that she was. Our relationship was deepened, and we became better friends than I could have ever first imagined. After Peter's denial, Jesus offered him that undeserved grace and a second chance for restored relationship too. With 3 opportunities for Peter to restate his love, Jesus showed his persistent love, forgiveness, and welcome. Would Peter have been as faithfully committed moving forward without that rocky moment of regret and repair? We can't really know, but we can allow our moments of regret to become opportunities for restoration and growth. We can receive the welcome and abundant love of God, no matter if we've wandered away and find ourselves lost, or if we've chosen to intentionally toss our faithfulness down the drain. With Jesus, there's always an open invitation to be BFFs and to proclaim our willingness to follow wherever Jesus leads.